Hey everyone, it's Friday, December 6th, 2013. I'm Darko, and I'm going to cover some news here for GGN. First, I'll start off with some Iran-Syria news, and then I'll maybe cover some Asian news. Hezbollah official has been assassinated, and Israel is held responsible. At least that's what they're saying. So one of the leaders was assassinated on Tuesday at midnight in front of his home on the way back from work. Israel has automatically held the complete responsibility for this heinous crime, is basically subjected several times in several areas to failed assassination attempts. I guess kind of a crappy translation, but I think you get the point. This enemy should bear full responsibility and all consequences of this heinous crime and this repeated targeting of dear resistance leaders and cadres. The Zionist entity denied its involvement in the assassination of Lakis. Israel has nothing to do with this incident, Israeli foreign minister said. Then moving on, Syrian militants to use kidnapped nuns as human shields. You probably heard about this, but the latest reports say that these foreign-sponsored militants or terrorists fighting against the government in Syria plan to use a group of nuns they kidnapped from their covenant in the town of Mullah as human shields. I believe you had the Pope trying to intervene here as well. 12 Syrian and Lebanese nuns were kidnapped from a Greek Orthodox covenant after foreign-backed militants, including members of the al-Qaeda-linked al-Nusra Front, moved into the center of the city on Monday. And moving on here, Syrian rebels consider joining forces with regime troops to fight al-Qaeda. This is interesting because I've mentioned this before. Why don't these the Syrian I hate to call it the Syrian opposition because they're so engulfed with foreigners, non-Syrians, militants, Salafis, and that. But I was saying, why didn't they just put their differences aside with the central government and get rid of these foreign terrorists, mercenaries that are there to destabilize our country? And maybe they're going to do it. So alliances are shifting after West warns war-torn country poses greatest terror threat. So official forces are declaring that they're prepared to join regime troops in the future to drive out al-Qaeda-linked extremists who have taken over swaths of rebel-held territories. Commander of the Free Syrian Army warned that that's funny, they call it, in particular ISIS, they call it ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and al-Sham, with thousands of foreign fighters in its ranks. He said it was very dangerous for the future of Syria, needs to be confronted before it becomes even more powerful. Syria's militant threat may force the U.S. to rethink President Assad. And I don't think I trust these people. Dianne Feinstein, that's House Representatives, saying on Sunday they told CNN that Americans were not safer from terrorist attacks than in 2011. Some analysts are saying that the Obama regime may have to take a more active role in staving off potential threats from the opposition groups. But striking these groups in Syria would pose a formidable political, military, and legal obstacle. It could come at the cost of some kind of accommodation, even if only temporary or tactical, with al-Assad's brutal but secular government, analysts say. Veteran diplomat Ryan C. Crocker said, "We need to start talking to the Assad regime again about counterterrorism. So it will have to be done very, very quietly, but bad as al-Assad is, he is not as bad as the militants who would take over in his absence." And Putin discusses Syria and Iran with Saudi intelligence chief Bandar. So the positive dynamics of the Iran nuclear program settlement were singled out in the talks. A Russian president discussed Syria and Iran with Saudi Arabia's intelligence chief Bandar bin Sultan in Moscow on Tuesday. The Saudis are seeking a way to diversify their foreign relations by restoring contacts with Russia, which is now the most active player on the Syrian matter. Saudi Arabia is supposedly furious with the U.S. for threatening to attack Syria and then not carrying that out, as well as the rapprochement with Iran. So Saudi Arabia can help Russia with a resolution in Syria because if anyone can influence the Syrian opposition, it's the Saudis, not the Americans. I saw an article, too, about Israel strengthening ties with Saudi Arabia. So Saudi-linked group behind Iran embassy attacks as Hezbollah. The Hezbollah chief said that he was convinced a Lebanon-based al-Qaeda group with direct links to Saudi intelligence was behind last month's deadly bombing outside Iran embassy in Beirut. I've pretty much said the same thing when it happened, but that's just reiterating it or verifying it. Zarif asked Saudi Arabia to work with Iran. Iran's foreign minister, on a tour of the Gulf Arab states, says a nuclear deal signed in Geneva should not be seen as a threat to any country. This is what's interesting. It says he's appealed to Saudi Arabia to work with Iran towards achieving regional stability. So Iran, Saudis. You just had something in Egypt about whatever the regime is over there that's running the show, probably the army or whatever intelligence, Western intelligence in there, saying that they declare the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist group. But who knows, if they do get back on their feet, you have Iran, Egypt, and Saudis back in the picture, working together possibly in the future. I guess you could say that that would drive oil prices way up. But, that's just, who knows with the, gas prices and oil prices, how that actually works. I do think it's like South Park where they just go in there and they cut off a chicken's head, and put it on one of those gambling turnstile things with all the numbers on it and see what's what. And Zarif urges Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to work jointly for stability. So this is just another type of article covering the same thing. Here is Saudi Arabia to work with Iran for stability of the region. He says, I believe our relations with the KSA should expand as we consider them an extremely important country in the region and the Islamic world. They believe that Iran and Saudi Arabia should work together in order to promote peace and stability in the region. So, UN adopts disarmament resolution embodying Iran proposals. So this is the most recent news from today. The UN basically unanimously adopted a nuclear disarmament resolution that includes proposals forwarded by the Iran president. So they moved forward, and the U.S. says Iran deal can include capacity for uranium enrichment. U.S. also recently was saying that they're not for sanctions, so, or at least the White House was. White House said that the final comprehensive deal reached by the powers in Iran and its nuclear program could include capacity for uranium enrichment. We're prepared to negotiate a strictly limited enrichment program. So, where's that coming from? Iran says we're going to produce way more oil. So, like I said, what is it that Iran has that they want? Is it they free up sanctions? That's money flowing into the West. It's more oil for Europe. So, and Iran gets to be on the a global player in the global scheme of things. That's run by Jewish bankers, or what people refer to as Zionists. So, it's like I said, I don't know how anti-Zionist they really are anymore, but hey, for me it's been kind of not an awakening. I kind of always thought about it like that, but at least for me personally, it verifies that they're part of the New World Order, as they say. Yemen car bomb attack killing at least 52 bears hallmarks of Al-Qaeda. So in Yemen, they had a big explosion. They detonated a car bomb at the entrance of a defense ministry building. And after that, you have State Department seizing U.S. passports in Yemen. They'll start out with this crap. The rights of citizenship are among the most crucial to a democracy, from whatever flows to legal protections. They said basically the U.S. Unlawfully seized over 100 U.S. passports from Yemeni Americans. It says the U.S. consular officers in Yemen believe they are God and act accordingly, so I guess it's a bigger deal than I thought. This has been going on before that, so it's not like they did it because of the bombing, but former Ukrainian presidents warn of chaos. Three of the country's former leaders give their support to anti-government protesters. This is the country, I think, that had the Orange Revolution. For most of you, probably aware, you have the EU and then you have Russia. I mean, it's like they're going to get sucked into one or the other. And I guess it says here that they were going to go with the EU, right? So it says here that there was anger over the president's shelving of a long-awaited pact with the European Union. Again, I think this is all just engineering consent. I mean, I'm not Ukrainian, I'm not there, I can't speak for them, but it seems to me that they probably didn't want to be in either. And they were being told, this is, this is a bad thing. We didn't join the EU. And then they get people out there protesting and stuff. But, you know, did they really want to be... Did they really want to be under Russia's yoke of influence? Kind of like with Iran. I don't think it was like, you know, a big win for Russia or whatever. I think it was just a big win for the global consolidation of power. So, you know, if you're a sovereign state, you're going to have a rough time. It could mean too that it's moving more eastward as far as, you know, the conflict between the eastern trading blocs and western trading blocs into Central Asia eventually. Euro Spring, Ukraine revolt could cascade to more post-Soviet states, which would be those Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Georgia. So there's decades passed since they each gained their sovereignty, but the post-Soviet states west of the Eurasian divide continue to struggle between the European identities and the influence and benefits that have come from allying with Russia. So apparently the president there in Ukraine chose neither Russia or EU. This is something a little bit different. I wasn't expecting when I saw the headline. Calls for Russia's breakup must not be left unpunished, says Putin. Voicing separatism in the Russian Federation violates the country's constitution, and those who allow this must be held responsible. It is stated directly in the Constitution that the state must provide the territorial integrity of the country, and thus any talk about dividing any territories from the Russian Federation are anti-constitutional. In October, the leader of the Russian Communists called for the breakup of the Russian Federation under are inspired by the Imperial West. This is what he says, and should be punished by a jail term when asked by a bunch of college students. Approval for Russia's Putin lowest since 2000, says opinion poll. Rising prices and an economic slowdown helped drive Putin's public approval rating to its lowest level in more than 13 years. Then the Chinese want to spend billions constructing a 600-acre China city in New York State. So we were talking about, I've mentioned it a few times, about the deals made by Zionist bankers and China to shore up money. This includes the Iran deal would be, selling off the Chase Manhattan Bank, allowing nuclear contracts to China. I think China either storing gold in New York, or they bought a bunch of gold there. But either way, there was a lot of stuff going on with J.P. Morgan Chase in China and New York. It says here that the China city is actually what it would be called. It would span approximately 600 acres in a remote area of New York. The plans anticipate large numbers of Chinese businesses, plenty of homes for Chinese immigrants, a Chinese high school, college, casino, and even a theme park. It's only phase 1 of the plan. They say the ultimate goal is 2,000 acres. Those promoting this plan say it will be a great way for New Yorkers to learn to appreciate Chinese culture. Finishing up here in the last 2 minutes, a couple stories from South America. Looting erupts in Argentine city after a police strike. Television showed looters, some on motorcycles, breaking into dozens of supermarkets and shops, stealing goods from food and beverages to flat-screen TVs. So, people dead. Then in Venezuela, they have elections going on down there. Massive power outage hits central and western Venezuela. Venezuela's Maduro, the president, said it was live sabotage on the electrical grid, blaming it on the fascist right. But there's probably a little bit of truth to this. I've seen articles like this before. There's no reason for today's blackout, stressing that the power outage has occurred as local elections begin 5 days away. Mexico finds stolen radioactive truck empty. They found a stolen truck that transported radioactive material, but the materials are not inside the vehicle. They have caught the 6 individuals supposedly driving the truck or stole the truck. This, of course, is to put it out there in case anything happens. For a false flag, they blow something up. They said it was 60 grams of cobalt-60 inside it, enough to manufacture a dirty bomb. Flammable water near gas drilling sites in Louisiana. It only started once they started drilling those wells, says one person. So people's water from their tap are actually catching on fire. In California, for the first time, they're fining an oil company for dumping fracking discharge. Boeing wins a $76 million doomsday plane contract. So the rest of us down here are having our skin burned off by, quote, a dirty bomb The commander-in-chief will be safe, hovering above us like a god. Thank you.